This episode of the Beauty Industry Podcast was brought to you by Forest Salon Software. Join 6,000 plus happy salons using Forest to increase bookings and revenue today. Hello and welcome to the Beauty Industry Podcast, your online support community for the professional beauty industry. I am your host, founding director of Beauty Industry, Tamara Reid. Here we are closing the competitive gap and speaking your language. This is a platform created and dedicated to the professional beauty industry, valuing community over competition. We serve to help connect you with inspiration from industry experts, expand your knowledge through educational pieces, and bring you the latest in product and technology innovation. This is Beauty Industry. Today I have with me two guests, husband and wife duo Lisa and Matt Williams from Professional Beauty Solutions. Family owned and operated by Matt and Lisa Williams, Professional Beauty Solutions started out over 2 decades ago with just one brand, the ever popular Youngblood Mineral Cosmetics, and has grown to become Australia's most trusted distributor for professional beauty brands. Representing 15 world-class brands, they currently supply over 2,000 salons, spas and clinics across Australia with innovative, high-performing beauty brands, along with exceptional service, training, marketing support and business education. You'll hear today that Lisa and Matt, along with their team of 40 employees at PBS, take a 360-degree approach to doing business with their salon partners while providing an experience of convenience by having all of your business needs met in one single supplier, as well as the personal touch of a family-owned business. Matt and Lisa were so kind as to provide us with some seriously generous time out of their busy schedules today as they join me virtually from their headquarters in Sydney. On that note, there is a little internet connection difficulties at some point throughout this conversation, so hopefully you can forgive the internet gods and see why we push forward with this special conversation regardless. From Professional Beauty Solutions, today we welcome Lisa and Matt Williams.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you so much. What a privilege to be able to take some time out of your busy Monday morning schedule and have this chat. I really appreciate that. If you have never listened to an episode of our podcast, we actually start all the way back at the entrance of our guests' careers into the industry. And I would love to start with you there today, because I believe that you didn't always begin in the beauty industry. So how did you actually enter in?
That's okay. It's we entered 15 years ago in the industry. It's a bit of a long story, a long backstory before this, but to cut that long story a bit short, my parents had the distribution of Youngblood Mineral Cosmetics, and they had met Pauline Youngblood whilst traveling in the United States, living in California for a while, back at around the mid-90s. And my mum was a hairdresser by trade, always loved makeup, had brought that brand back to Australia. And at the beginning, they had intended on doing some big things. But their dad had bowel cancer. He survived. But that kind of I guess they rethought their goals at the time. And essentially then they ran it like a home-based business with the two of them selling Youngblood from their home for about 9 years. The one thing that they did was the annual trade show, and they did it in a very small way with a 2x2 4 square meter stand. But that was enough to sustain their business. And essentially it was a home-based business with no employees, just the two of them. And it had grown gradually in the 9 years. And Lisa and I had been real estate for a while, always been in sales and marketing, and had then gotten into Gloria Jean's coffee franchises. We owned 4 on the south coast of New South Wales. We'd subsequently opened marketing and consulting firm, like business consulting firm, and a gym. So we had our hands full at the time. But whilst we were doing these other things, we watched mum and dad's sales just gradually year on year grow. And we kept on saying, this has potential. You should do this or you should do that. And at one stage, I think my dad said, well, why don't you come and show us what to do? And I was like, well, we entertained that idea, and he wasn't that great at being told what to do. So anyway, they got to the point where mineral makeup started to get some traction in the Australian market, and Mum and Dad got the call from the United States, the parent company of Youngblood, and said, look, you've done a great job, but we're getting approached by some larger distribution houses, and we have to consider growing in that region properly. So Mum and Dad were a bit like, well, we're going to lose our income, and this is all we've got. Dad had retired from Qantas, Mum had retired from hairdressing many years before that. And so they were a little bit worried about what that would mean for them. And we had seen that opportunity for years. We saw a good time to exit the coffee shops. And that's a whole nother story about timing and exits and when you can notice things that are going on. And essentially we did what we could in a transition to wrap up the other businesses that we're in and buy in and take over, purchase Mum and Dad's business. So in the early days, I'm trying to wrap up all the other stuff that we had going on, and Lisa's doing everything on her own, with attempting to get guidance from my mum and dad, and that, you know, that they hadn't built anything large. They hadn't employed people. They, like I said, their warehouse was under their stairs at home, and in their garage. So that was a huge kind of transition. But we decided to go all in because we saw the potential with that one brand. And that was back in 2006 or there around. Yeah, nearly 15 years ago.
We had 2 little babies during that time as well. So we had, I think, Ellie was a year old. Our youngest was at 1, and
Lockie was 4.
Lockie was 4, yeah. So it was a big move. But owning businesses, as you all know, like owning any sort of business is tricky. And then winding one up and starting another one, or winding multiple businesses up and starting another one. That was
so we had to sell out of 4 coffee shops, a gym. The consulting business, I had a very close friend of mine take over, which is great, and it still exists to this day. But yeah, the 4 coffee shops and a gym. So we've essentially we've started things from scratch. We've grown them from small to big, and we've exited out and sold multiple businesses. So the last 20 plus years in business together there's been lots of learnings.
Yeah, and that's quite a risk to take. I mean, closing down 5 businesses and a consulting agency, having 2 young ones, buying a business, let alone a family business, which is like a whole nother kettle of fish. I mean, you must have seen something that was seriously potential there. Did you already have all of these light bulb ideas that you could do in the business if only it were yours?
We saw that I wore Youngblood for all those years and loved it. And we saw it basically grow almost through neglect. They did 0 marketing, and that was one of the things that we recognized. You're not spending any, other than that trade show, you're not spending any money on marketing or salespeople. They had no sales team out there servicing their accounts.
Marketing and sales.
So marketing and sales was kind of where our background was. And so we thought there's so much potential for that. If this can grow with really 0 marketing and attention and training, and then what could it do if you added those elements in there? And I wasn't a makeup artist. I wasn't a beauty therapist, but I always had an interest in makeup and beauty, of course. Like, I'd been wearing makeup since I was a teenager, and I fell in love with Youngblood. I felt that it was the best makeup I'd ever used, and I was passionate about it. So we had passion for the product, and we had somewhat of a know-how, kind of what to do, but we had no understanding of the industry. So what we've always done with every business that we've ever owned is we've always gotten mentors. We had mentors when we had the coffee stores. We actually had a McDonald's franchisee who was our mentor and really guided us through along our path there. And then so we thought, all right, we need somebody from the industry who can guide us with this, being in this industry. And so we found a couple of people who had longevity and a fairly long extended background in the space. And we just started we started by breaking down what is this industry, who is our competition, what are they doing really well, what are they maybe not doing, so where does the opportunity exist, is there an area where there is a need that is not being met. So we analysed everything just with a really clean slated and open mind, which probably, if I look back, I think that was a real advantage, because we didn't have any preconceived ideas about what could or couldn't be done. We only looked at what's working, who are the biggest players in the industry, and we were looking at we were looking at skincare companies, we were looking at all different types of companies, not just makeup in the makeup space. And we also looked at what Matt had been doing with other businesses in the gym industry. When he was coaching, it was all different sorts of industry, from landscape gardening to steelworks, and coffee shops, like the hospitality industry, the real estate market. Like we just took knowledge from what works in business, and we applied those same philosophies and strategies into this business. And so much of what you do in one business translates into another business.
Yeah. In fact, we have a bit of a rule of thumb that 80% of business is identical. And then there's 20% which is different. And that's usually where it comes down to the product and or the service in delivering it. But everything else, like the financials, the leading and managing of people and stock and operations, you could cross over from
Customer
one thing
service,
to another.
Yeah, all those things translate. Doesn't matter in a way what the product is, as long as you've got those structural things right.
And as Lisa said, when you've got a diverse background, you can say, well, remember we used to try this in the coffee business. Remember we used to do that. What if we took that idea and then translated it over here? And
then finding the talent, of course, the talent of who is the great makeup artist, having good makeup artists, having good therapists that understood the industry and the needs of the salon owners. That was a really crucial part that we focused on filling immediately, because that we needed that talent. We needed someone who understood the industry, and we just found that talent and took it from there.
Yeah, it's so special. Such a very cool story. I love what you're saying there, because I think a lot of people go, okay, I'm going to open this business or I'm going to take over this business. I need a big plan and strategy. And we see, strategy is such a buzzword these days. But exactly as you've described there, I sit down with my business 4 times a year and I just get out a plain pad and I wrote what's working, what's not working. And then I ask my people around me, what do you think's working? Because sometimes what I think's working is actually not working in the business. And then I ask our audience. And I love that it's just such a simple little exercise to do, but you can find out so many holes, in your business, or you can find what you're actually doing really well in regards to your competition. I'm interested to find out from both of you, because hospitality and real estate and landscaping and all of the other things are so different to our industry, as you've mentioned, really only by a 20%. Were there any kind of traits that you had to change or grow or adapt when you came into this industry? And I'll give you an example of why I ask, because I went from dermal, working with doctors and dermatologists who are very strict, very black and white, no emotion, pure factual. And I went into spa, who are all like, soft as petals, very, very emotional, very empathetic. And I went, oh my goodness, I don't know how to deal with these people. So I can imagine that's in the industry, right? 2 different streams. So have you found any of those personality traits or characteristics that you've had to change or dull?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously real estate's a very male dominated field. It's very masculine energy. And
I managed a sales team in that office. We didn't own that business, but I managed a sales team. When you've got a sales team of men who are usually young guys that are driven and ambitious, and all they care about is getting a bigger commission check, it's a very different way to manage to get the most out of that team as compared to our sales team now. Although the selling, a lot of the same sales strategies apply, but our girls care deeply about the success of their salon owner. Whereas the guys that I used to work with, like, it's like, hey, a sale's a sale. If I don't get the vendor the highest price, it doesn't really matter. I just got to get it over the line. Our girls are nothing like that. So that's, and I think that's because they have a much more nurturing energy. So even though there might be similar processes involved, that's a huge difference.
Absolutely. In the way that we communicate with our sales team and our team. I mean, the way I've had 90 employees when we had the coffee shops, like 90, most of them were under 20. We had, most of them were either uni students or, we had a couple of people in their 20s. Well, when we started, I was 25 myself. So it was, we had one or two team members that were older than us, but the rest of them were pretty much younger than us. And so that was a little bit easy. It was difficult to manage all those teens, but we learned very quickly that, okay, so one of my first lessons about how to manage team came from, we had this amazing manager. She'd grown up being trained through McDonald's. But one of the things the feedback that she gave to us was they were so hard and fast with their rules. You had to put in this process for if you wanted to have leave. Most of the time they would say no. So everyone would, of course, just call in sick. So we said, well, we don't want that. So we said, well, what can we do? And she said, well, we work really well if you give the opportunity to them to swap a shift and make sure that they can swap it. And there was a few hiccups along the way, but we eventually got it to a place so that nobody was afraid to say, hey, I can't do that shift. And so we would fill it for them. So we had very little people last minute no-shows of people just not turning up for shifts, because we realized that we had to work within their values, what was important to them. And we've always understood that if you know what's important to your team members, what motivates them, what drives them, what makes them happy, how to meet their needs. If you can meet the needs of your team members, then they will meet the needs that you have as the business owner. And it has to go both ways. If it doesn't go both ways, you will not either hang on to that person for very long, or they'll continuously let you down, and the care factor simply won't be there for them when they're there and you're not there in the business, because you can't be there all the time. So if you care about their needs, but you also have to have clear boundaries and expectations, that's still okay. It's not about letting team members walk all over you. It's this very clear, defined, these are our expectations, but we really care about you. And if you need some time off, we want to accommodate that. We really applied that same thing with our team members here. And then it's that's quite still a feminine energy, I would say, too. And for our salon owners, what are your needs, and how can we accommodate those needs? And understanding that the emotional charge that many of our clients have over certain things, yes, that was very much an adjustment, because now, you know what? We'd had emotion even in real estate, because I always say that that your house is your kingdom. Yeah. So people would become very attached to your castle. So people would become very attached to their homes, and they could be very emotional about that too. So from a client perspective, there was that emotionally charged that was different. We obviously didn't have that in a coffee shop, but we had it in real estate. So it's,
hang on, if they're low on caffeine and they're standing in front of
you, they could be cranky then too. Yeah,
they're emotional.
Yeah, so we always sort of train our team is to say, look, our salon owners at times, they're going to be really stressed. They're not going to have any support around them. Oftentimes, they're going to feel isolated.
Yeah, you're going to feel in over their heads.
They're going to feel overwhelmed, and they're going to be struggling, and that may spill over to us. And we sometimes become and we've had salon owners call back up and say, hey, I'm sorry, I lost it, and yeah, so it's just understanding the pressures that they experience and being able to try to accommodate that, but also say, okay, we can coach you, we can give you the tools, we can make sure that your product is there. If we can get it there within 24 hours, we will. But then outside of that, whatever we can do within our scope of supporting you, we will do. But at the end of the day, we also have to have clear boundaries for our salon owners to say, but this, guys, this is your responsibility. We can give you the tools and we can give you the guidance and we can coach you, but we can't run on the field and do the work for you. So if you want to keep your team accountable, that's yours as a business owner to hold. We will try and give you some strategies around how to do that for sure. But at the end of the day, you've got to hold that team accountable. And that's really challenging for many of our clients. I find that they're either really, really soft, and we do some DISC analysis training with our team, and it helps a lot with them when they're dealing with our salon partners as well. And a lot of them are S's. They're all about support, nurture, everyone getting along. They really want that. They're not necessarily goal-driven or results, outcome, direct-driven people.
They like to avoid conflict.
They like to avoid conflict and confrontation. So you've got a big pool of that type of personality in this industry.
I mean, that's what brought them into the industry.
Yeah.
They're nurturing. They would care for people.
Yes.
And
it makes them fantastic therapists, but it doesn't generally make them excellent business owners. Yeah. You do get, though, we do get some Ds that are super direct, super driven, cut to the point. This is what I want. This is what I need. This is what I expect from you. And they're great to work with as well, but they can be hard as well to deal with sometimes. But if you understand what their needs are, again, and you can break down to what is it that you need and can we fulfill that need, then they're equally great to work with. So it's understanding, like, honestly, I feel like to be in business, you almost need a degree in psychology.
Yes.
Dealing with customers, dealing with suppliers, dealing with team members, like all of that requires a level of understanding of what makes people tick, and what drives people, and how do you get the best out of all of those people to come along the path that you want to take them on, the journey that you're on, but also take them on the journey that they want to be on as well. And it's a constant negotiation. Like, it's a constant walking a line of balancing all of those pulls in different directions. You know, you can have the best customer service and have, we used to have the franchise would come down and say, your wait times need to be under 2 minutes. And we'd go, well, to do that, we have to put another person on. And if we do that, the business is not profitable. Like, we were dealing in like single digit percentages in terms of our profit margin at the end of the month. So we had to be really tight with that. So, but sometimes people don't understand that. They just put more people on because they want the service to be amazing, but then the business is no longer profitable. And if it's not profitable, it's not viable. So it's finding that balance between amazing service, but also and delivering a product that people want to keep coming back for, but also keeping the business in a healthy and profitable state so that everyone continues to be employed and have a job and an income. It's a tricky balance to find.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually do a lot of DISC profiling. It's one of my keynotes that I do for our industry, and break it down into, you know, how business owners can talk to their team, and then how the team can talk to their clients. And actually, I'll put a little profiling sheet in the show notes if anyone wants to click through if you haven't done it before, because it's life-changing. And all of a sudden, you're this little chameleon who can talk to all different behaviors and personalities and change how you communicate. And it is so powerful. But yeah, I mean, exactly what you're saying there. It is so important that we are profitable. It's so important that we take a step back from the business and we actually look into the business as well. I want to take one step backwards because I want to quickly chat about Youngblood. So you come in, you do sales, you do marketing, business explodes, overnight success, obviously, right? But at what point did you go, maybe this can be a distribution?
Yeah, we I think that there was a few factors. That the first thing is we hit about 1,000 customers, and we thought, this is kind of crazy. Like, they're loyal to us. They really like dealing with us. We should sell them something else. and they're getting their skincare from somewhere, they're getting their tanning from somewhere, they're getting other products from elsewhere. And so we thought two things, and we weren't too urgent on it, but it was the spark was there. The first thing we thought is, coming from Irish background in both of us, we naturally have what do you call it? I think that I think I introduced myself the other day as Fitzpatrick 1 and Fitzpatrick 2, and that's about as dark as we get. I'm only a fraction darker than Lee, so we were always like, look, we got to have our own tanning brand. And then we thought the smart thing to do would be all the additional brands that we bring on, let's make them all of our own. So we started with tanning. And we developed Sunescape. So essentially, we were no longer just distributing someone else's brand, but we put on our own hat as being a manufacturer. And that was the hardest thing we ever did. And it was really challenging, because you don't, when you're distributing someone else's brand, you say, yeah, we'll order 50 of that and 500 of that. When you're doing your own brand, you need to buy 10,000 bottles and get 2,000 filled and hope for the best. So it's a huge ball game. So Sunescape has been great for us. It's been an excellent brand. Our salons love it, but it also put into perspective, we're not just yet cut out for doing our own skincare brand or anything else. So then it was actually a competitor of ours that lost the distribution of ID Bare Minerals and MD Formulations. It was Mandy at True Solutions. We didn't know Mandy personally, but we knew that Shiseido had come in and purchased those brands, and overnight she didn't have those brands anymore. We looked at each other and we're like, holy shit, if one of the P&G or one of the big groups comes in and buys Youngblood, we don't have a business, when it was just that one brand. Like, this is as we're developing Sunescape.
And we were looking at different models, like True Solutions had a bigger model with multiple brands
and equipment.
So we thought, okay, as a distributor, you have no security when you're just at the mercy of another company.
When you
just have one brand. So we thought we have to actually spread our risk over more brands. And obviously our own brand is the ultimate and the ideal, but it was really challenging. And then over time, we were fortunate that we got offered other brands.
I think
we
had a reputation of what we had achieved with Youngblood, especially when Mum and Dad had been doing these 4 square metre trade shows, and within 5 or 6 years we were doing 100+ square metre trade shows, and people would come down and go, well, so who's the company doing Youngblood? And
we were the #1 Youngblood distributor in the world, despite only having one of the smallest populations in the world.
We've got a population half the size of California, and we were doing more in sales than anywhere else in the world.
Yeah, so it was that kind of thinking, well, and then we had someone, like a relationship partner, introduced us to a brand, and then we got in. Actually, we had 2 relationships, one from New Zealand and one from the UK. We got introduced to Image, and we got introduced to Dermalux LED, and they were both off the back of good relationships that we had developed, and
through partnerships.
In fact,
it's probably noteworthy. This applies to another story that we tell from early on, but we'll save that for another podcast, the prequel podcast perhaps. But there's a great line. People say it's not what you know, it's who you know. And I had a mentor once say to me, both are incorrect. It's not what you know, and it's actually not who you know. It's who you know that knows how good you are at what you do. Because he said, if you know people but they're not aware of what you're able to do, it's useless. But if you know people and they know that you're driven, that you can produce results and you can get things done, he said, then the world just opens up. And I got told that as a young man, and I was like, okay, so I need to network. I need people without sounding arrogant but I got to let people know that I'm a guy that will follow through and do what he says he's going to do. I pride myself on that. My whole career, I've always thought, I'm going to be the guy that always does what he says he's going to do. And that's hard, by the way.
It's the pressure that we put ourselves under not to let people down. It's a daily pressure we both wear heavily. And that's suppliers, and that's salon owners, and that is team members.
Yeah. And really, even though we're the only stakeholders in the business, but it's the business profitability. We can't let ourselves down either. We've been through years where it's like, wow, we're keeping that brand because we're growing the sales for the supplier. We're servicing our accounts and giving them more and more and more, and we're keeping our team happy by meeting all of their needs. And with all our money, and we've invested so much into this, and we've had years like that. So it's important to be able to. In our opinion, and the methodology that we apply to our business growth is that none of those should come before the other. They all should be balanced. Now, at times, you make decisions around which one needs to take a front seat. Is it satisfying a supplier? Is it satisfying a customer? Satisfying a team member? Or satisfying the bottom line of the business? But they're always in flux and always need to be taken care of over the course of, like, let's say, a quarter or a year. And that's important to keep things operating and functioning. Yeah.
It's a challenge.
After the break, Matt and Lisa share how they navigate the many relationships in their life between competitors, their team, their brand partners, and of course, their relationship together. But first, a word from today's beauty partner. Community, I know many of you are working on your business at the moment, and perhaps that has involved you thinking about changing software providers and looking at stepping up your marketing game. Well, our friends at Forest Salon Software are offering free setup and migration for a limited time only. This means that you can simply move your software over to Forest for free. And yes, you heard that correctly. Contact the team at Forest today to arrange a free bespoke consultation by clicking the link over in our show notes. Thank you so much to Forest Salon Software for making this episode of the Beauty Industry Podcast possible. Now back to Matt and Lisa. It is a challenge, absolutely. What I'm hearing from you both when you're both speaking, and you're such an adorable couple because you're finishing each other's sentences, and we'll touch base on how that relationship works later. Yeah. But what I'm hearing from both of you is just how important relationships are. And when you're both speaking about your competition, to me, you're not sounding like, oh, that's our damn competition, we've got to be better than them. I can hear that you're both saying, we admire what they're doing over there, and we want to be as good, or we want to get there as well.
I'll just say on that point, because I mentioned Mandy and True Solutions. Firstly, we looked at her model as an excellent model. She was years ahead of us getting into the industry, and it broke our heart when she lost those two huge brands. It really did. Like, we didn't even know her personally. Our thought is, and I know it sounds trite, but it's true, that it's not about dividing up this finite pie. We can all bake a bigger pie, and that's what we like. I mean, there's somewhere between 10 and 20,000 salons, spas, and clinics around the country. We're a big player and we've got 2,000 clients. So it's like, hey, there's so much more. And I love chatting with competitors and getting insights.
And we're in awe watching people that are doing anything well. We're like, oh, what are they doing? That's great. That's clever. If we can learn from our competition, we always have the utmost respect for and empathy, I think, too, for there's been a few things that have happened recently to one of our competitors, and I feel sick for her. Like, I think, that's a real challenge that she's going through that at the moment. And we know that they're going through the same things that we're going through as well. So, we've never had this that damn competitor attitude. It doesn't mean we're not competitive and we don't want to win. I think you can't be an entrepreneur and be in business unless you've got that competitive streak. We definitely have that. But it's like, I guess it's like going to a race meet. You go and you chat to your people that you're about to sprint against. But at the end of the day, you still want to, want to be on that podium at the end of that race.
But it doesn't mean
it doesn't mean you at the expense of anybody else.
Like when people talk about like demolishing the competition, it's like, that just doesn't resonate with us at all. No. I think Apple's a better company because of Microsoft, and vice versa. I don't think it you should be inspired by your competition to build yourself up and get better yourself.
Exactly, and hold yourself to a higher standard. And we say that to our salons as well a lot, because sometimes they do get really stressed out about what's going on down the road, and you do kind of have to say, have a look what's going on down the road, that's fine, but then come back and just say, how can we do that better?
Yeah.
How can we deliver a service that's even better for our clients and wow our clients, and just worry about what we're doing with our clients, because the rest will come. Just focus on your own race and doing the best, and being ethical and being consistent and caring for your clients. That will always win out in the long run. But I think sometimes people get a bit too stressed about their competition. We don't stress about it at all, really. And we stress about lots of other things, but that's one of the things we don't stress about.
And when you mention relationships, I'll never forget about, well, I'm forgetting the date, but our office and warehouse here at Cornell was pretty much leveled by a tornado back in, I think it was December 2016. A tornado, and I'm not just using that. It was an actual tornado came through, and it sucked the windows out. It ripped the roof off, and we were displaced for
These
about
glass walls collapsed.
For 6 months. We're out of our business, and we had to temporarily go to another premises, and it was shocking. It was 5 days out from Christmas, and there was about $1.5 million worth of damage. Just insane.
Right.
But you know what was amazing at that time? We had competitors reach out and offer to ship product for us. Yeah. And that was just like, that's incredible. And I think that, I just think that's amazing of them to offer. But also you get that offer if you're an asshole.
Absolutely. And it is a small industry, right? So you've got to keep those relationships good. You don't want to be burning any bridges, because your next boss could be your ex-employer, your ex-employee. So really, really important. I've heard you both speak passionately about helping business owners, and I can hear it come through your voice today. And you use this word 360-degree approach. What does that mean when it comes to the support that you guys provide within your brand?
Do you want to start on the product side?
So there's a business side that there's chances that one's a business side and one's the product side. So what we sort of thought, as the business started to develop and we brought in more brands, we had to really think about who did we want to be. And we didn't want to have a company that had lots of competing skincare brands or lots of competing makeup brands or tanning brands. We wanted to have this more holistic approach to what our salons' needs were. And we sat down and mapped it out, and we said, right, so they've got the makeup, we've got that box ticked. Obviously, skincare is a big one, and skincare broken down into a couple of different categories. So you've got cosmeceutical skincare, and then you've got more organic end of the spectrum as well. And then there's body care in terms of body products and body treatments that the salons were doing and the spas were doing. And then there's tanning. So that was another area that we thought we can satisfy that need. We did look at hair removal, so and that's where we took on sugaring, and we thought, well, sugaring is a really natural evolving. It's a great way to remove hair. There's lots of these benefits over just traditional waxing. And then we thought the other gap there is equipment, and so much of the businesses are evolving with really good quality equipment. And the first step into that was LED for us. And we could not have partnered with a better company out of the UK who were coming out with some really exciting technology that was sort of disrupting that LED space a little bit, because there wasn't a lot of competitors in there when we first came into that industry. There's a lot more now. But we looked at the return on investment that LED could provide to a business, and that was mind-blowing for us, because we could go in and say, okay, this is what we can do with your menus, and this is what we can do with your ROI on every facial treatment that you do in your business. And we know that skin and face is where the most of their revenue for the majority of salons comes from. And then we looked at the technology side, and then that started to evolve. Like, we've just launched Linton lasers in Australia. We just got our TGA approval through a couple of months back, and we're now sort of selling the first devices. But that was a company that came off the back of Dermalux, was an introduction. And the technology, they come out of Manchester University. So we've partnered with really strong partners. And then the other thing was internals, like that 360 degree. We know that skin doesn't just get treated from the outside. It's so much of whether you get results with your clients is what happens on the inside. And so we partnered with a company who was developed by a lady who was a beauty therapist 30 years and then also a fully qualified nutritionist. And she combined, and she saw the gap in the industry as well, and combined those two forms of knowledge that she had developed and launched her own brand. It's a really great brand for treating the skin internally. Her knowledge is just amazing. So it was kind of like, okay, if we can give you all of the products, the brands, the devices that you need, we can essentially be this place where you don't need to go anywhere else. And then on top of that, we have laid in the business and marketing support. Yeah. So we give our salons this marketing on a platter, is what we call it, or MOAP for short. And we create marketing sets for them to be able to sell through the promotions that we give them. We teach them how to do, marketing, social media. So any types of tips or how to send out email, we create webinars and we put it all on this platform for free for them. So the education has that, it's that 360, well, that goes into more what Matt's going to probably talk about.
The 360 degree approach for a business in relation to how they can actually grow and scale their salon. So often a salon owner they struggle with money and they think, okay, well, I don't have enough money. Well, when more customers come through the door, that means more money. So what I need is just someone to help me with my marketing so I can bring more customers in, right? So that's usually the thinking process of a salon owner when they're addressing their biggest concern at the time, which often comes up as money. And sometimes it comes up as people, and sometimes it comes as, and then you're playing a game of whack-a-mole. So the 360 degree approach to that is, I would tell a salon owner, and we offer webinars and education on this, is that you don't want to necessarily start with marketing if you haven't addressed the profitability model of your business and you're not making money on certain services, and then you drive more people through the front door. You can just go broke faster. So you have to get some other things in order first. And then I would also add, if your team is losing people on the back end because they're not following protocols and they're not taking care of people, then driving more customers through the front door is not the solution either. So I always start with, and this is where it comes 360 on the business side, is you need to start with a competitive advantage before you do anything else. You have to know how you're different to your competitors and what you do special and what you can do that other people can't do. Because without that, you're going to struggle with the other areas. So that's number one. Then secondly, we need to make sure that you actually have a profitable business model. Are your treatments priced correctly in order for you to actually make money at the end of the day? And so often the salon owners haven't considered that because they've priced their treatments based on what their competitors doing down the road. Or they're doing nails and they're comparing it to a nail bar where, let's say, sometimes they just can't compete on price of a large nail bar. So the second thing, after competitive advantage, we need to make sure the profit model is set and it's actually operatable. Then and only then you look at your team before you address sales and marketing. So you got to make sure that your team is able to follow through and execute the promise to the customer, and they understand your vision and your mission in the business so that they're on board with you. And then if you've got all of those three things first, then we can go really, really hard on marketing and sales to drive people through the front door. Then finally, where you come back to 360 is after having done all of that, the business is going great. You can't rest on your laurels. You have to look for ways to innovate and ways to get better in order to maintain that competitive advantage that you started with. So that's where it comes full circle every single time. And if a business doesn't do that, like you've got juggernaut businesses. No one remembers Research in Motion, the guys that started the BlackBerry. Nokia are no longer, real competitive in the marketplace because they failed to innovate. So at a huge level and at a tiny level, if you're not constantly innovating and looking for ways to actually get better and then reinvent that competitive advantage and then do everything, then you can reprice your services and then you can inspire your team. Now, this is the thing. If you think about a salon owner, because so often their biggest challenge is their team. And it's like, they want to know, what sort of ad can I run, or where can I look for people? It's like, okay, hang on a second. if you're a salon, a spa, or a clinic with this amazing competitive advantage, and you've got a profitable business model which enables you to maybe pay above the award for people or offer them bonuses that are more lucrative, you need those two things before you start looking for where you can find the people.
They'll start to probably
they start to,
knock on your
everyone
door.
wants to knock on your door. So people get business, and by the way, I don't blame them for getting it wrong. It's taken me 2 decades to figure that out myself, and lots of trial and error. But another mentor of ours used to say, you want to take all of your knowledge and attempt to compress decades into days if you can. And that's what we endeavor to do now, where we take the knowledge that we've had from every challenge that any salon owner out there, whether they've got multiple salons or just one, we've likely faced it, and we've likely got an appropriate solution or idea that may work for them and implement for them. So that's how I feel like that's our best point of difference as a distributor. Our given is we only offer world-class brands that we vet very carefully. I think I said to you the other day, we say no to multiple brands every week. And some of them are good, but if they're not the right fit for us and our salon owners, we don't take them on. So we're saying no all the time. So if we've got a brand, rest assured, it's world-class. And then on top of that, it's not just about providing you with that brand, but providing you with what you need to make that brand a profit center in your business.
Yes. Oh my goodness. You're just speaking all of my language, because one of the biggest questions I get asked is, how can I run a marketing campaign? Or, I want to just do a promo, and my question back to them is why? Why do you want to do a promo? Why do you want to do a marketing campaign? And there's a lot of people out there at the moment, and I know there's going to be so many people coming into this industry doing the same thing, where they go, oh, just chuck a $29 micro special on for 2 weeks and you're going to book out. And then the problem with that is great cash flow, fantastic, but you've got a team who doesn't stack up in terms of their communication. They don't know the values. They don't know why they're doing the promotion. They don't know how to rebook. They don't know how to prescribe to their clients. Plus then, what are you actually showing as your values if you're just continuously discounting? And as you said before, Matt, then you've got this unprofitable service, which you're just churning out. You've got to pay your wages, your rates, your overheads for $39, that's the revenue. It just makes no sense to me. So I really appreciate that. But on another level, it seems to me like you guys are actually training business owners in the gap from being a therapist to being a business owner, because there's a huge gap there. And I think a lot of distributors go, okay, we need to churn out product knowledge. We need to churn out education on ingredients, because we know that education sells, but you guys are like, hang on, we've got to do that, obviously, because that's how they know the knowledge. But here's all of this other extra tools in your belt that you can actually use to be a business owner, which I love.
We always look at, there's a big difference between causation and correlation that Lisa and I are very careful to not get caught up in. So people think, well, this happened because of that. And we're like, well, hang on a second. Where's the source of the problem? I think we met as teenagers. One of the first part-time jobs that I had, well, it was a full-time job, but it wasn't a career. But I sold seminars when I was a teenager. And one of the guys I sold seminars for was Michael Gerber. And he wrote The E-Myth. And if anyone is not familiar with it, I recommend they buy it and read it. But
they should do by now. I think I talk about it on every episode.
Exactly.
We talk about it all the time as well.
But I think that entrepreneurial myth that starting a business makes you an entrepreneur, and that most business owners start as the talent. So whether it be the therapist that opens their own doors because all their friends and family say you should start your own business, or the builder that does the same, or the plumber or whatever. Because of those early days being exposed to Michael and his teachings, we fortunately never fell into that trap. So that first, growing up, even though areas that we were always in like commission driven areas, but the first real business that we had in our mid-20s, which was the coffee shops, I didn't even drink coffee. And we learned very quickly when we went to multiple stores that I couldn't be there every day. Lisa was about to have our first bub, so she couldn't be there every day. So we had to set it up to work on it rather than in it. And when we made that move from coffee to cosmetics, again, we didn't have that background, so we couldn't jump in and get too hands-on. The one business that probably wasn't a huge success for us was the gym that we owned, and I put that partially down to the fact that I know my way around a gym, and I can actually that's what everyone thought that I would grow up and do, own a gym, because that's what I was into as a teenager. And that's the one business that didn't thrive for us, probably because I just went too hands-on. So anyway, it's important for us to be able to teach business owners the fundamentals. I think we had a chat the other day, and I like the idea of like a training program being called Fit for Business, because most people aren't fit for it yet. And I think that there should, I mean, I'm not for more regulation in any area, but
you say this all, I know you're
but there should be a pre-required course to do before you get an ABN.
Yeah. In Germany, you can't open a business without having a bachelor. And here we just go, ABN done, $35 open.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like wearing a seatbelt being required, or wearing a helmet. It's for the person's own best interest, because people will blow their money starting a business, or if not their money, their time and their relationships, if they're not cut out for it. And there is a great passage. I'll send it to you after this, and I can't quote it off the top of my head, but it's from a Gerber book. I think it's E-Myth Mastery, where at the beginning of the book, there's a couple of paragraphs where he talks about what's required from a business to be successful. And I'll never forget, we had a friend, they started a business. It was, and they were like 6 or 9 months into it. And they're like, so what do I do to, like, I'm really, really struggling. And they went into detail about the challenges that they were facing with it. And I read this friend that passage. They were having dinner at our house, and I went and got the book off the shelf, and I read her that passage. And she said, that was the moment I decided to close my business. And she said it was the best move I ever made, because she said, I didn't just keep on going for another 2 years. And I hate to be
you remember
that.
And I know it was the best decision for her and their family. And they're in a way better position now because she went and got a job. And the job was way better, way more lucrative than it was when she was trying to run her own business. And sometimes people just are fantastic at doing the craft, and running a business is not their thing. And
however, if that drive is in someone and they want to, these are teachable skills. Anyone
can do it. It's whether or not you've got it in you to want to go down that path and study and devote so much time and energy into it. And you also have to consider the balance of family. And I think that you probably talk about this tomorrow, I imagine, that like that balance of, as women owning our own businesses, generally it's not that we own our own business and our husbands are at home looking after the kids. No, we're trying to do both. Husband's at his job or has his business, and then we have to try and raise children and run the business. And that is just, it's massive. Like I think that women underestimate the drain of trying to wear those hats, too many hats. And we wear all the hats. And the burnout rate, I think women just keep going though, don't they? Like they just keep thinking, well, this is it. I've just got to keep doing this.
And the only thing that we want to be able to offer is perhaps, and I'm definitely not shortcuts. I don't think there's any such thing. But we can offer advice of pitfalls to avoid, for sure. And I think
I will also share a secret that I don't feel like I say this enough, and it's not that I try to hide it, but if you've got your own business and you've got children and hubby's got his own job or business, then outsource. Outsource. We had a nanny. We did daycare for the first few years, and then we realised we're spending an absolute fortune in childcare here. Maybe someone at $20 an hour a few afternoons a week would probably be more viable here. But we have had help at home. Like we got a nanny like a night. One of our first nannies was 19 years old, but she was just brilliant. She was amazing. She's
like a big sister.
Still like a big sister, and still part of our family now. And I have an ironing lady. Like I have someone, and mostly everyone has cleaners these days, but I have a house cleaner once a week. I have an ironing lady a couple of days a week, and we had childcare when the kids were little, and that was transformative as well. If you can outsource some of that stuff, tasks that you can then free up to work in your business, that was a massive game changer for us, and it allowed us an ability to wear that hat properly rather than trying to juggle with switching hat. Like you still do that, of course. And my kids are teenagers and they still very much need their mum and dad and have challenges that we have to be there for always. But that's what I would say. If you can outsource, like if you've got a business, like invest the money, you'd be amazed.
You do the menial tasks. And
then you'll be amazed at what you can then go and invest back into your business and turn a profit faster if you're freed up to, do you know what I mean? Like, and I think that women, I don't know if they're ashamed to admit that as well sometimes. And I think for a long time I felt a bit guilty about it, but then that just meant that when we got home, we could have more quality time with our kids. And that's important, I think, especially for mums.
I said that to my husband the other day. He said, oh, how are you going to do everything? And no, he said, not how you're going to do everything. He said, it's going to be fine. You'll be able to do everything because you just work from home and, you can have the baby there and you can have the slow cooker on and make the dinner. And then you can go in and take a call and it's just all so easy. And I said, absolutely not. I said, we'll be getting HelloFresh. We'll be getting a cleaner in. And I said, and if I need to do a big day of calls, you'll be taking a day off. Let me tell you, there's none of this, put the slow cooker on and take a Zoom call and just rock the baby in the corner. I was like, something's got to give.
I thought you were going to say, and I responded with the divorce papers have been sent.
Like I've got girlfriends that have their own business, and this is not in this industry, but in just they're entrepreneurs, and they get to the place where they're like, oh, I actually need you to take a week off so I can just have a block of a week to get some stuff done. And the husband's just not understanding that at all. And I think there is this real lack of understanding everywhere from men, and I'm not saying all men, no, like I'm not, but it's so much more common than not that men don't really get that juggle of. And also, like, I would say this is that coming to work at a separate place is so much easier than trying to work from home, because you are leaving that behind. And but when you work from home, it's like, oh, I'll just put a load of washing on. Oh, I'll put the slow cooker on. Oh, I'll just vacuum the floor there now. That's dirty. And you just don't get the work done that you need to get done. And the kids are, I need this, I need that. And like, it's impossible to get that done. Like, it's really challenging. And they don't understand that because they don't experience it, because they get to have the freedom to go off to work and speak to adults during the day. Even that is like a source of mental anguish when you just don't get to interact with other adults if you're working from home as a as a mum. I suffered probably very deeply in the early stages because I was doing the books for the shops from home, and I was juggling the drop off to daycare and then trying to get to the office, do a bit of work, then go back and pick them up. All
admin tasks.
Yeah, and it's so hard. Like, it's so hard, and I don't know that I have any advice except to say it doesn't last forever, and it will get easier once they go to school. It's so much easier. But
help for those
if you can get help, like a little bit of help here and there in like little chunks of blocks, I cannot endorse that enough.
Yeah,
and it pays itself back.
Correct. And even if people are listening to this going, oh, well, I don't have kids, if there's still something that you're not good at, like the books or, like the marketing or, I am so shocking at running events, which is why I have an events manager. Like, I am not good at doing my books. Therefore, I've got a bookkeeper, so it's about outsourcing everything. And coming back to what you were saying before, Lisa, there is this sense of pride, like we as women should be able to do everything. And I'm putting should in like little rabbit marks, right? Because, even when I said to my husband, we'll be getting a cleaner, he goes, oh, but, rich rich people get a cleaners. And I was like, no, people who have dirty houses get cleaners. Like there's no need for like ego or guilt or anything attached with it. You can't do everything. So you've just got to outsource it.
You do.
And if you know what, if you look at the tasks and the elements of the business that you're good at, and or you think about what you'd like to earn from your business, and then you calculate that as an hourly rate. It's like, okay, well, I got to value my time at X dollars per hour. So anything that you can outsource that's under that is then a good idea. Because if you can spend more time doing the more the higher dollar productive activity and delegate and outsource anything that you're not that does make you feel strong, and that you can actually get someone else to do it for a lesser amount, it's a good decision. So yeah, the house cleaning thing, if you can get a cleaner for $40 an hour, but you know that the task that you're going to be working on while they're cleaning the house is an $80 an hour task, then you've made a good decision. You don't have to be rich to make that decision.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious to know, we're kind of already answering this question. You guys are so great together, but how do you go working and also living with each other? Because I would absolutely rip my husband's hair out.
Look, we get this question a lot, and I always answer it this way, is that we're very lucky. And Matt and I, yes, people make their own luck, and we believe in and we do have to work at it, and I'll come to that. But for the most part, we're very much in sync in that Matt has a set of skills that I don't have. He's definitely, I mean, I am a numbers person, and I love a spreadsheet, and I love, we're both Ds. That's the other thing, is we're both quite high Ds. He's probably more DI, I'm more DC. So I'm more operational. I'm more about systems and the operational elements of getting the stuff done. And so I'm kind of managing over that stuff. And then when it comes to spending the money, I'll come in and go, okay, these are all the numbers. This is what it's going to cost. Do I make this decision or that decision? And so we kind of operate that way. If it's got anything to do with lawyers, insurance, accountants, taxes, all that stuff, like he's really good at that stuff. So fortunately for us, we really have a different set of skills. And then when it comes to the overall direction that we're heading, we're moving, we always want to move in the same direction. We once had, and Matt's more the visionary, and he's more the, I think, at his heart and his essence, he's more the entrepreneur than me. I'm the like get in there and get it done kind of person. We had a clairvoyant, actually, this is quite funny, say to us a long time ago, like 20 years ago, say, Matt, you're at the top of the tree pointing, and Lisa's down in the jungle with a machete cutting through the jungle.
Then she said, Matt, you walk down through all the jungle, climb the next tree, and go,
all right,
going that way.
And we kind of, it is like a little bit like that. It's not quite. I mean, we're both, doing hands-on very much with our business.
And there is a definite, like, there's my skill set, there's Lisa's skill set, and the overlap is quite well. Sales and marketing and a whole bunch of like this directional decisions, strategic decisions, there's overlaps.
The way we manage team, like our philosophy around all of that, that's kind of all aligned. But then I will also say this, is that where we struggle probably more than anything is sometimes the balance of, it can sometimes just be the way we parent, or so it doesn't mean we don't have those moments where we are in conflict of, I think this and he thinks that. And in those times,
or around a team member occasionally pops up where I think this,
yeah,
or even a decision, where a product launch or a financial thing,
and so we're also not afraid to go and have a therapy session. If we get to a place where we usually we can work through it.
Now, again, we won't go to the therapist and say, hey, what do you think we should do about this product launch? No. we get to the source of where are we disagreeing, and is it so we don't stay at a symptom level.
And what are our triggers?
But we want to get to the causal level.
Yeah, and understanding what our triggers are. And sometimes his stuff gets triggered, and sometimes my stuff gets triggered, and that's where we have to go and seek out support and to understand what has been triggered here, and then what is the way through. How do I manage my own trigger? How do I help him? How does he help me to manage mine, and vice versa as well?
When we know that we're not getting anywhere with the two of us, that's when we'll say, all right, we need. And when you're the owner of the business, like you can't call a team member in for some help.
Although I will say this, we constantly bring our team in on every decision, and we're very transparent with our business, with our team, and they know what our mission and values are, and we're constantly having to.
Do you think they go with you more than me?
Yeah, like if there is sometimes like, let's go, okay, I think this and Matt thinks that, like Matt will say, I reckon they go with you more. I don't know, like, no, I think that it's split. But that's pretty rare though. Most of the time we're on the same page. It's more, like I said, it's more the personal stuff where I think if we're in a state too of both of us in a state of overwhelm, generally what will happen is one of us will fall over and sort of fall into a heap, and the other one will step up and be able to manage while that's happening, and then vice versa. And then every now and again too, both of us will just reach a stage of a bit of burnout, and then we both know, okay, we need to go and get some support around this and have a bit of a break too. So it's understanding that stuff. It's recognizing triggers. It's recognizing burnout and overwhelm. And we most definitely have both visited those places over the last 25 years. Yeah. And I don't think that stuff ever fully goes away. You learn from it though, right? Like it's like any relationship. You constantly are having to, you have challenge, and then you have to learn from it and continue to move forward with those learnings, and then you mess up again and then you learn from that. So we're human, but it works pretty well.
Yeah, well, very refreshing to hear. In fact, I said to my husband last night, I've just hired a brand new executive assistant, and I'm so excited. And he said, stop hiring all these other people and hire me. So after your answer, I may consider 12 months time, not tomorrow.
My girlfriend just did that and it's been the best thing ever. Like her husband now works in her business and it works really well for them. I will also recommend a podcast that I've been listening to that's been really helpful too, called We Work by Esther Perel. She's a couples therapist, actually. She's got a couple of books out, but she's got a podcast that's on the Apple podcast app, and I think she's on Spotify as well. Spotify is where I think the We Work sits. But it's a great podcast to listen to, because sometimes it's not just a relationship with your partner, it's the relationships with your team members. If it's understanding all of those dynamics at play. And I think you sometimes need that little bit of outside support. People don't go and have therapy with their team members, but that's what this essentially is people having therapy sessions. And it's great to listen to, because you kind of you go, oh yeah, that's interesting. That's a really good insight.
Very cool. I'll put that one in, also that passage from the E-Myth into the show notes as well. One last question, if I can steal a smidgen of your time. 15 brands, huge company, leaders in the industry. If someone were to talk about PBS and the type of business that you guys run when you're not in the room, what do you hope they say about you?
I hope that they say that we care. Yeah, I think that that's the thing that is most important. That so often, I think that the suppliers can be seen as just having just their own best interest as the goal. I mean, not just suppliers, like any large company can be seen that way. And it's really important to us that that people know how much we care about their business and their success, and not just yes, it's their profitability, but our internal mission statement or vision. Like there's the the client facing one, but inside we have this belief that a profitable salon, spa or clinic is a happy salon, spa or clinic, and we want our salons to be the most profitable in the industry. And when I say profitable, I also mean predictable, and businesses that are able to operate somewhat without the owner, not completely. I don't think that it's a myth, because we've had elements of that with businesses, but I think that a profitable, predictable business that works harder for you than you do for it is the ultimate goal of any business owner. And our salon owners struggle with that as much as any small business owner does, but I would say in some regards even more so, due to some of the reasons that we've discussed today. And if we can alleviate some of that pain, whilst doing our standard job of supplying world-class brands, then that's what we want to be known for. But if that's the outcome that we're known for, again, getting back to the source or the cause of that, is because we genuinely care about that. And there's no part of either of us or anyone on our team that is happy with the idea of loading someone up with a bunch of stock that they just can't sell, or that is going to be a hindrance to them. Like it's
the furthest thing from
So that's how I would sum it up.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that, because that's, for me, at the end of the day, is what I care about, is knowing that people know how much I care. And if there's ever something said and I'm like, oh, that's
not true,
that's not what it is, that can hurt. And because we do genuinely care, when you do care a lot, it can hurt if people don't see that or know that.
I think, can I add that a part of that being our purpose is that you could see a similar company like ours being run by some guy that went to uni, did a degree in management and business and commerce, and then as appointed as the CEO of the company and runs it. We don't see that a lot in this industry, but it's not uncommon in our industry and others as well. And the goal of that person running the show is to make the business profitable and or pay a dividend to the shareholders. That's a typical kind of situation. It's very different when the two people at the helm not only are still we're a medium-sized business, but we're still in that same small to medium-sized category as the people that we work with on a daily basis. And we've been doing this type of thing and facing the same challenges for the last 2 decades. And we know how painful it's been. We know what it's like to come home at the end of a long day and think, shit, how are we going to actually pay wages tomorrow? And when you've had that feeling, you have empathy, and with empathy, you make different decisions. And very different to, I remember a period of time before we would talk much about our story, and I think people assumed that I just went to university and was appointed into the role, and they didn't realize it was actually a hard slog to get here, facing very, very similar, if not identical, challenges on a daily basis.
Yeah, very impressive. Well, you have definitely left that impression on the industry. Everybody who pops into my DMs asking me, should I stock a PBS brand? And I go, which one and why? And then it's most definitely absolutely, because we can tell that you both care from the outside. So you've absolutely left that mark. Thank you so much for coming and being my guest today. I really, really appreciate your time and all of your expertise.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks, Tamara.
Talk about a dynamic duo. Lisa and Matt were literally finishing each other's sentences and bouncing off each other the entire conversation. And if that's not adorable, then I don't know what is. You can tell how much they truly appreciate each other in the way that they validate, respect, and focus on each other's skills and experiences. And looking from the outside in, it looks to me like that might be the secret sauce to running the hugely successful business that they have managed to create. With 15 brands under their belt, an incredible team and client culture, I'm sure you're going to want to have a little sneak peek into the PBS brand, and you can do exactly that by clicking through the show notes or visiting them over on the gram at Pro Beauty Solutions. Be sure to share and tag both PBS and us at Beauty Industry to share the love while you're listening to this episode, and don't forget to leave us a little review or rating if you've enjoyed the conversation. Until next time, stay connected.